All right. Welcome back to Bring the Juice. Fire me up. We are here with Coach Natalie Benson.
First we gonna rock, then we gonna fold, then we let it pop, don't let it go.
Coach, welcome to Bring the Juice. This is actually a huge episode. Do you know why?
Tell me.
We are in the newest Bring the Juice studio. Yes, you've heard it last week when you listened to Monique Sherrod. My wife is pregnant. I had to move to Bring the Juice studio. We're back home where everything started, but instead of being in the basement, we got promoted to the next floor up, floor level. And what do you think? It's kind of vibing. It's okay.
You know, I'm honored. I'm honored to be your first guest in the new studio.
Yeah.
And I think it looks good.
Yeah, there's some things that need to be tweaked.
You got some things going on though.
Things need to be tweaked. We'll get some more art up here. I want to put a speaker in the corner so we could have like major vibes bumping right until we start the episode. So it's like it's a dance party, and then or maybe it's just like Johnny Cash. Maybe we're listening to some slow Frank Sinatra. And then all of a sudden, boom, straight into the vibe. I got to make some tweaks.
I think it would have to be based on like your guests, and maybe, you know, you have guests of a wide array of ages and personality types. I think you just got to see if the vibe fits. And I think it'd be a cool little guessing game for you. See if like the vibe would fit.
I'm thinking like now as we're talking it out, what would your pregame walk-up song be? That would be the song I'd want before we start the pod. I feel like that translates, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But
what would you want?
But here's a fun game. What do you think my song, and maybe it's two separate lives, maybe like my playing days and then maybe like a coaching persona.
Yeah, but you always get back to your roots. Always get back to your roots. I think if I threw on Thunderstruck and just we started it and then we wiped it out and started the episode, energy's instantly going to be high.
AC/DC is always a good choice.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Coach, you're a 3-time Natty champ at UCLA. Got a lot of accolades. I could list them off. Google it. But you are impressive. And you've been the head coach of Fresno State water polo for some time now. First of all, congratulations on the success. You love to see it. You know, one thing I found really interesting about your whole experience, though, was when you were done playing at UCLA, you really went right into continuing your career coaching and professionally / the Olympics, correct? Mm-hmm. Did you always know this was your plan? Or did you ever have, like, I'm just thinking from a student athlete perspective here. Obviously, you want to go pro, but in water polo at the time you were playing, what was the path like?
Yeah, I won't lie, and I think that there's a certain bit of, you know, right place, right time in my career where I graduated high school in 2000, and there were a lot of firsts that happened in my career throughout that time period. So, for example, women's water polo. Or girls water polo more specifically, became a CIF sanctioned sport in Southern California during my sophomore year of high school. And then there were only 3 divisions, so very few teams that competed. And then 2000, my senior year of high school, was the very first Olympic Games where women's water polo was a sport. So men's water polo is one of the oldest Olympic team sports, whereas women's water polo, the very first time that was a sport in the Olympic Games for the women was 2000. So
being a high schooler and that came news, that had to have been huge for you.
Enormous.
Yeah.
And again, like I think any kid, you know, I want to be the president of the United States. I want to be an Olympian. I want to be an astronaut. You have these big aspirational dreams, and do you really think about the reality of them? No. Not so much, but I think I found myself in a position where that could be achievable, and I just decided to kind of take that road and see where it led me. But definitely a little bit of right place, right time. Having it been my senior year of high school was the very first Olympic Games in women's water polo. I lived locally to where the team trained, and so I'd come out and they'd just kick the crap out of me. I was a 16, 17-year-old kid just getting, you know,
but you got to train
by these women. I got to train with these gals.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's people do not realize. Yes, you got the crap kicked out of you, but at the same time, how much better that was making you at that time.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And I think, and then that put me in position to go to UCLA, which another first. My freshman year was the very first NCAA championship for the women's women's water polo.
Your freshman year was 2001.
2001. Yeah.
That's the year you won the Natty.
That's the year we won our
So
Natty.
you won the first. The year you won your first Natty.
Yeah.
So you were 1 for 1 out of the gate.
Correct.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
pretty badass.
I was just an ignorant kid. I had no idea what was going on. I was like, oh, so this is how it is. All right, cool. You know,
Hey.
hoist the trophy. Let's bring it home.
Yeah, we ball. That's so awesome. I feel like I say this in the most respectful way possible. I'm getting a lot of Kalen DeBoer vibes right now. Just stuff. You're young, successful, career. You know how to win.
I like winning.
Yeah.
Winning's fun. But I think also a nice thing is that I don't want to have to sacrifice my morals, my ethics, my values, you know, how I think it should be done for the sake of winning, because sometimes winning can feel really empty and can feel really awful. You know, you can have a winning season and not feel good about it, you know, based on some of the athletes that were involved, maybe some of the situations that occurred during that season. And to me, it's not worth it having a winning season if you're just miserable the whole time. Because, like, why do it if it's not fun, if it's not enjoyable, if you're not adding value to these young people's experience, you know, if they're not becoming better people from this, because as we all know, like, sport goes away no matter how far you go with your sport, it goes away. So, you know, do you want to be a person that gives back to the game or just gives back to society, or just somebody who rests on the laurels of like high school, you know, varsity or, you know, college?
Sick Letterman's jacket.
Yeah. You know, like, I don't really want to rest my laurels on that. And also, like, things that happened, we were just talking 20 years ago. Yeah. You know, should I be valued for something I did 20 years ago or for something I did today?
No, you gotta keep any task ahead. You gotta continue to try to chase greatness and maximize your potential in anything. You mentioned, you know, the morals and whatnot. Obviously, that is built around what your team culture is. As a coach, you know, you're experienced now. You've seen the highest of the high level. When you said, okay, I want my team to be like this, I want to create this certain culture, what's your standard?
Oh, man. How long is this show?
I got more ice.
I'll tell you a little bit about maybe how I came to have the standard I have, because sometimes, like, the standard to me is my standard. And sometimes that's hard to articulate.
The standard is the standard.
The standard is the standard.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, to me, it's just kind of like, that's just how you do things. That's how you're supposed to do things. That's what champions do. That's what I've been taught to do. So I guess to kind of get back to the roots of it, I've had some really great people in my life who've, again, right place, right time. I had some great coaches and some great mentors and teammates around me who helped form who I am. You know, nobody's really a self-made person. A lot of people go into building who you are. And so, you know, I've had teammates put me in my place and support me at the same time. I've had coaches who were extremely supportive with kind words and supportive with, you know, get your stuff together and get your head out of your butt and get it together and do this or don't.
Right. You're saying that all very nicely too.
Yes, very nicely. You know, I'm trying, you know,
PG.
Again, pseudonyms.
For the kids.
You can talk to the girls. Yeah, it's a G-rated show.
It is not a G-rated show.
And so, you know, I've had some really great coaches that have been very supportive, and I've had some coaches that weren't super supportive, but they were like great tacticians and technicians, and I learned so much about the game from them. But then I also learned about like the human side of it and how important the human side is to coaching. How it's like you could be a fantastic X's and O's coach and know all of the right things to do, all the great plays and how to teach guys how to do great things. But if you can't understand the person and the humanity of the person you're working with, then you're not coaching. Yeah. So I think that's one of the big takeaways for me is like, I need you guys to have, I think connection, communication, cohesion were my 3 words this year for our team. It's like, if we're not connected, if we're not communicating with each other, if we're not making eye contact and having a real conversation, if we're just avoiding the elephant in the room, you know, and we could talk about, you know, college trash Jenga or the dishes in the sink piling up, or this person they left their laundry in the washing machine. Now it smells like crap, you know, like there's a lot of things that these young people go through. That's like a big deal that really annoys them. So it's like, have a conversation. And as an adult, you understand that's an easy conversation to have. But when you're 18, you know, 20, it's kind of a difficult conversation to have. It's like, why won't they just do what I expect them to do?
It's awkward confrontation for the first time.
Right. So I think,
I definitely understand that.
Yeah. So that communication is just so vital and so important, especially when, you know, all of us know in athletics, it needs to happen and it needs to happen right now. And sometimes you need to communicate like the building's on fire. You know, you can't walk in and gently wake people up and say, excuse me, are you ready to wake up? You got to scream like it's on fire, get out. You have to speak with a tone of voice that encourages action because it needs to happen. It needs to happen right now. And so some people are put off by that. But I think the more, again, we build that into our culture and our expectations of like, hey, they're not trying to get at you. They're not trying to put you down. We're just trying to get things done and be successful. It needs to happen. It needs to happen now. So top to bottom, sophomores, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, grad students, everybody can communicate at the same level.
That's a great answer. Upholding that standard is huge. And I love how you say communication because that is everything. And I like how you said elephant in the room. Sometimes you just got to throw this shit out there. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about it. Best way to go to a fight is run to the fight. It's easier said than done. Mm-hmm. And I think it's cool. I think from a football perspective, there's a lot of guys in the locker room, so that sometimes it's harder to herd the cattle, if you will. But I think that you have that standard, and you're like, hey, this is how it is. This is what we do. And just the concept of communicating. Communication is a huge part in any business you do, family, or relationship with somebody. It does come down to communication, figuring out how you want to communicate. And as you know too, everybody takes different communication different ways. Sometimes you can mother F them and they respond. Other guys, you do that, you're turning them off. You got to give them a little bit of puppy love here and there. I get it. Not everyone's raised the same, but ultimately, I think that the culture that you built clearly is speaking volumes considering you're in the win column. Do you have any, I'm sure in the water polo community, there's people that you've idolized, and before the pod you mentioned like your coach obviously you kept in touch with, but just figures, books you've read, athletes that you say, hey, I want to take different tools, different pieces and add them as part of my toolbox.
Absolutely. Obviously Adam Krikorian was my college coach and is now the national team, Olympic team coach. And so he took over in 2009 and he's won a gold medal, or his teams have won gold medals at every Olympics they've been to since he took the job. So 2012, 2016, 2021. And then now they're heading off to Paris. So they're the defending 3-time gold medalists. The Americans have medaled in every single Olympic Games on the women's side that we've had since 2000. So,
Heyo.
Yeah, so little flex.
Quick
But
shout
we
out.
went silver, bronze, silver, and then gold. So that's huge. And he's just done such a great job. And I think he's such a great model of being a tactician and a technician and challenging these women to be their best. And obviously they wouldn't have the results they have without the leadership that he's instilled. But even I think Friday there was a little coaches summit and they got to have like a little Q&A with him. And somebody asked a question about like mental health days and how would you handle that with one of your athletes. And obviously everything's relative. It's like a high school coach asking that question or a 14 and under coach asking that question is a lot different than the Olympic team asking that question. And while he's an incredibly compassionate person and emotionally intelligent person, he's also like, this is part of the job.
Absolutely.
The suffering is important to your success, and suffering's part of it. And you need to understand that like part of preparation is going through things that are hard, even when you're mentally not where you want to be, and so it's learning how to get through hard things. Even when you've only got 40% to give, you at least give 100% of that 40%. And so I think like just getting in with your athletes and digging in and building that trust of like, hey, I hear you, I see you, I feel you, but like,
I gotta be that guy.
I gotta be that guy right now. And I need you to compete, and we're here to compete. And if you want to, like, you do or you don't. Like at this point it's binary, like you it's a 0 or a 1, it's black or it's white. That's it, so like there's no in between here. You're in or you're out. Right. And so even with our athletes, if they're a little bit hurt or whatever, I'm like, all right, you say you want to play, you're not feeling great.
Yeah. Hurt or injured.
Yeah. Yeah. But like if you're a little bit hurt, or you're a little bit sick, can you go or can you not go? And if you choose to go, I expect you to be who you are. Yeah. And so if you can't do that, then don't.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and I think that's another great thing about our team is that we've got some tough kids that play through some things that even I'm like, maybe she should not play. And then she gets in and balls out. And you're like, all right, well, I guess she's a lot tougher than I am.
Do you see any change as the generations have kind of moved on, whether it's toughness level or mindset on pushing through those hard times or being entitled to certain things? Because you've been in the game a fair amount.
Yeah, I think the nice thing about there's two ways of thinking about this. So our sport compared to a football,
sure,
a basketball, a baseball, a sport that has high recognition, sports where NIL is big, or the expectation of some sort of financial payback is an option.
Right.
We don't really have that, and so like that part is kind of off the table, but that's definitely changed globally within sport, where hey, I want my due, and again, the irony of like a Dartmouth men's basketball starting this whole thing, it's like you're a losing program that can't even train in your off season, and like you are the figureheads of this we want to get paid and be employees, right, movement. Is really interesting, but I think that's where a lot of entitlement is coming from, and I just think it affects Olympic sports severely, where ultimately the Power 4 conferences are going to be football, basketball, baseball, softball, maybe volleyball, and then everybody else is just left to their own devices. And so I think that really affects the student athlete experience, and so I'm a little nervous about how that's going to kind of trickle down and affect everybody else who's not one of those sports. And then also it's like, I want the kids to get I want them to be able to be paid for their work, and be able to do a podcast or sell merch or do whatever they want to do to make some extra cash, and be able to do that with their name and their image and their likeness. Totally. Absolutely. 100%. Take advantage of that kind of stuff to pay your bills and make your life a little bit easier, no doubt. But then it's becoming a professional sport.
It's what I was going to say. I have two of my good buddies that I played ball with are very involved with the NIL space, specifically at Fresno State. And I've talked to a few people at other colleges that, that's one fun thing. Obviously, you don't like having to go through multiple staffs or players transferring in and out from your program as a player. But at the same time, you get to hear different stories from other different universities and their experiences. And, NIL, it is what it is. I didn't even think about asking how it affects the water polo culture at this point, but it's like you said, if you want to take your name, image, and likeness and go and get a free sandwich at Dervo's Deli, delicious sandwiches, you want to do a commercial with FFB Bank and maybe get paid a little something to walk their hats, golf at their golf tournaments, do it. But if you're a senior in high school or you're in the transfer portal and you're like, having an auction for yourself.
I won't even come on a visit unless you pay me.
It's dude,
it's getting a little off the rails.
I think it started off really big on the Wild West side. Eventually it's going to get reeled back in. I actually have had some really good conversations with some business owner recently, a couple of business owners recently. And, just for our perspective, like realistically, if you're a company and you're investing in an athlete to promote your stuff, that's one thing. And I think there's people out there, like I saw one with Wendy's chicken nuggets recently. Somebody's eating Wendy's chicken nuggets. They got enough money to throw a big name guy a big check for Wendy's chicken nuggets, and that's the cool thing to do.
Who doesn't like chicken nuggets?
I love Wendy's
I would
chicken
like
nuggets.
an NIL deal for Wendy's chicken
I would
nuggets.
die for an NIL deal for Wendy's chicken nuggets.
I've
interviewed quite a few Fresno State athletes. You know what their number one want for NIL deal is?
Food.
Hino Oshi.
No.
Hino Oshi's number one. I've had 5 guys say if you could pick any NIL deal, who would you want to sign it with? 5 of them. Hino Oshi's the first answer. Why would you not? It's fried rice.
Heck yeah. Fish.
Hot and spicy sauce.
Yum.
Delicious. Lunchtime hours, it's a little cheaper. Hino Oshi said, I'll have every athlete in Fresno State get free double fried rice anytime they come. They got to get the rest of the meal. But the second fried rice is free. I bet you, they'd go crazy. We'll talk about Campus Point and events from Campus Point later, because there is a Bring the Juice dodgeball tournament there August 17th, which we'll get into later. But back to NIL, I wish it wasn't a bidding war. I think players definitely should be able to get compensated for their name, image, and likeness. Yep. And coming as a guy who wasn't a poster board child necessarily in my tenure at Fresno State, we had some studs. I think it's a cool opportunity where if you are just a personality you could maybe make a deal.
Mm-hmm.
You look at a lot of other colleges, or you look at, especially with the power of social media these days, there's guys who on certain teams in college, they got hundreds of thousands of followers. They're making deals not because there's some stud, All-American wide receiver or quarterback or something like that. People just like their videos.
And again, I support that. Like,
you should
like the TikTok things, and like one of our girls is doing like a bunch of TikTok videos and all that. And it's like, great, like do it. Absolutely. But yeah, this bartering of, I want a contract, like the 4 to 4 to 4 to 4 to 4 transfers.
No, it's
like,
ridiculous.
Come on, man. Like, I think you're missing the whole point. And again, it's just like, especially in our community, we see, like we're about the community, we're about the Valley and representing something bigger than you. And then it's like me. And so it just doesn't really fit, our brand.
I agree.
Know what I mean? In the sense of like the stuff that, again, yes. Fried rice, 100%.
Fried
Love
rice.
it. All about it. But that's the thing. Like, feed them, give them a little bit of cash, feed up their gas tank.
I'll get your water polo girls to bring the juice hats. I'm happy to do it. Bring the juice water polo.
Make their life easier so that
make that happen. Done.
Let's do it.
It's done.
But like, feed them, help them live a more sustainable life to where they can go home and they can sleep and they can focus on their academics and they can, put gas in their car to do what they need to do. And so they're not stressing about working overnight or working late hours and then coming to practice the next day. It's like that kind of stuff. I support that totally. And so there's like the global issue of like entitlement in sports right now. But then a little bit more locally, and as it affects us, to finish answering your question appropriately. I usually have long answers for short questions, but the effect on us personally, and in terms of the entitlement and things like that. I always joke like with my parents and people approximately my age, because I'm at an age where these kids, I would be a young parent, but they could be my children. And I'm like, it's not their fault. It's our fault. We raised them. Yeah. So if we have any fingers to point, we should be pointing some thumbs, like right back at ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, but seriously, like if that's, and they're just a product of their environment. Yeah. So it's not their fault that computers are a thing and social media is a thing and they have a phone and they don't look where they're going and they wear their AirPods while they ride their scooter through the intersection. Like, it's not very smart, but at the same time, like, that's just what it is. That's just how it is right now. So it's like, maybe we could tell our kids to put their damn phones away when it's time to eat dinner and stack them up, or like have rules on this stuff, or actually follow through on taking things away instead of being their friend. Like, that's on us as parents. That's on us as leaders and as coaches. And I think we've just gotten to the point, like, you think about club sports and how these kids are so specialized and how much money people pay to play club sports. It's ridiculous. You are afraid to like piss off your best player because they'll just go someplace else. So you've got to coddle them. And that's just how it's working. But again, that's why I love being here. Because Fresno acts as kind of a filter in a way, to where it attracts the kind of kids that I want to coach. Gritty. And gritty kids that have to work for things, kids that will hesitate to ask for things, to where the kind of kids that I'm like, I wish you would come to me sooner and ask for help. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the ones that'll try to make it work on their own before coming in and being like, oh, coach, can you bail me out? Can you help me out with this? I need more money. You know what I mean? It's like they do everything they can to take care of it on their own. And so I have a lot of respect for them. And again, that's how they play too. Like, they fight, they battle, they work through it. They're not looking at me like, help me, it's great. So I think that's the nice thing about it, that we kind of attract a certain group of kids that are a little bit more old school. They were kind of raised by maybe more old school parents, I guess, if we want to be like that. But I don't like when people are like, well, this generation, because it's like, all right, every generation had every generation has their shit. Exactly. Right. Like, my parents always talk about how their parents would complain about like the devil worshiping music and all this other stuff, listening to Led Zeppelin, or, like, right. Like rock and roll, Rolling Stones back then was like, get over it, man, bad stuff. So every generation has their thing. So we just got to learn how to meet them where they are. Well, I love that. And your college career was definitely different than most, because, again, I told you I did my research. I'm a professional. Like any good podcast. I'm a professional. I appreciate that about you. Thank you. But I know you won a Natty in 2001. Mm-hmm. You won one in 2003. You won one in 2005. Mm-hmm. Now, people might say, well, what happened? I don't know what the hell happened in 2002. We don't have to get into that. We're an odd year team. But I do know that in 2004, I think this is one of those badass things I've heard. You redshirted, so you could go to the Olympics.
That's fucking awesome. I was telling my dad, I told you, Madera, California to Kettleman City, 72 miles. What did I say? 52 minutes in the morning, hour 27 on the way home. A lot of time to talk, a lot of time to think of questions and ideas, think of new hat designs like this that you could go on bringthejuice.net and get. They're on sale right now. Check them out. The water polo hat's coming soon. But what I did say to my father was, this woman, and he has 3 sons that play Division I college football. So he knows the game. She redshirted and went to the Olympics. She didn't redshirt. And I lived in Utah for 2 years. I was around the Mormon culture. Guys would redshirt to go to the mission. You'd play a guy freshman year. You'd be like, damn, God, that guy's gone. He must be
26-year-old sophomores.
Motherfucker's back with 2 kids. And you're like, dude, where'd this guy come from? He's 30. But you went and redshirted to go to the Olympics. Won a natty, redshirt, go to Olympics, win a medal, come back, win a natty. That's not spoken enough. Tell me about that sequence.
Oh. I think, again, long answer. Lots of time to reflect. She's a professional. Yeah, she does a great job. But lots of time to reflect on that process.
Right.
I think in our culture, now that the Olympics are coming up, like if I could kind of speak on behalf of all Olympians right now, I think what we see as the traditional consumer of the Olympics is, Bob Costas and John Williams music playing and dun 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 dun, and it's like it makes you cry, and you see the cool story, the torch, and you see the story about the gymnast that's her 5th Olympics and she's from Romania and all you hear all the stories,
the rings get
and
you
see,
fired up.
and you're just like sucked in. You're like sitting there, you find yourself watching archery at 2:30 in the morning. It's just this thing, and it pulls you in. But you have to understand that when you're there, you don't see that,
right?
And you just see your job, and you don't have a chance to listen to the stories and hear John Williams and like watch all the success. You have like a closed channel feed of the games that are happening where there's no announcing, there's no nothing. It's just like the feed.
Right.
So you can watch some of that in the village with the other people from the other sports. But what we see is a blip on these people's radar. Like it's a 2-week portion of their journey where we come back. I think our second day we're going out to go to train, and everybody's got their gear on, and we see these people coming back into the village, and they're in plain clothes. And so people walking into the village in plain clothes with an athlete credential, that means they're done. So they're on day 2 and they're done. You think about like an archery or a shooting or a swimming or a track, like your 30 seconds.
I get it.
On the stage, you get it, right? Based on what you did. You fly down that thing once, you didn't go fast enough.
It's over.
It's over. Go home. Bye. Thanks for playing.
Yeah.
And so you climb this metaphorical mountain, and you're just climbing, and click, 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 click. And then it's over, and it's just sheer face of a cliff. You fly right off. Your support is gone. Yep. Your teammates are gone. Your mission is gone. And so there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of like how to kind of reacclimate people back into normal life post-Olympics. But also just like the American culture of like second place is first loser has always like gotten me. Like the gold medal count is the only thing that matters. We got to beat the Chinese and the Russians. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, what about the person that got 5th place who was there, but
didn't get any hardware,
but like was there,
trained their entire life to get there,
yep.
and made it finally, and then.
Yep.
Cool.
Loser.
Yeah.
You're trash.
Right.
You suck because you didn't get a gold medal and all this other stuff. And I think that that's something that we could improve upon culturally. But again, like America, that's not really our thing.
Well, women's water polo has got
women's water polo it's changed, but my experience was much different than the one that they have. But I think even just taking a time to recognize that person's humanity, even when like, watching college football this year was fun because like there were a lot of kids that screwed up more. Like I always marvel watching college football, like how professional they can be.
Right. And
like these kids that are still going to class and doing all the things.
20 years old.
Yeah. And they're 20 and they're out there just slinging it and like doing great things. And you're like, wow, this is really impressive. And like you have an entire athletic department on your back, and that's got to be that's a lot of pressure.
Of course.
You know what I mean? It's a lot of pressure for these kids. I recognize that. And I've just always marvel at how they hold their stuff together. But then you see some of the wheels fall off. Like I think there was like an Iowa, Nebraska? It was like towards the end of the season, and both quarterbacks were just losing their minds and the kickers were missing. And you're just like, oh my God, like they finally look like 20-year-old kids out here instead of professionals.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes we forget with Olympians, with athletes in general, that these people are human beings and they have lives and families and bills and stuff, things going on that they've got to take care of. And that's something that we got to remember, that that's why it's so cool that these people can do the things they do, is because they're human.
Yeah.
But the Olympics, again, long answer, sorry, but going out there was tremendous. I was 22 years old.
You were 22 years old in 2004, right?
2004.
How do you have the conversation of like, I'm playing for UCLA. Hey, I think I'm going to make the national team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was the conversation like with your coach when you had to say, hey, we just came off a natty. I want to go try out for the national team. And then you decided to come back. Like, how did that, I want to know that day.
Well, the nice thing was the coach of the Olympic team at the time, Guy Baker, was the UCLA coach who coached Adam Krikorian, and then Krikorian took over at UCLA. So it was one of those, like,
it was a good network to be in at the time.
Yeah, but it was like kind of like a little,
little triangle,
sport incestuous, like kind of like, we have this connection and we understand what it takes. So it wasn't like bartering with somebody who was a stranger. But Guy would communicate with Adam, like, and with all the other college coaches for that matter, like, hey, I'm interested in having these players train full time and be with me for training during this time period. It'd be great if you could release them and let them come over. And Adam's always understood, like, this is what it's all about.
Of course.
So begrudgingly, he sent a lot of us, and that's what happened in 2004. It was like 4 of us were training with the national team. 4 UCLA gals were training with the senior team. Yeah. And then, so we weren't there to play with our college teams. That's why they didn't.
Yeah, but you got to redshirt and do this.
Yeah. Redshirting to do that.
Crazy.
Right. So we went and did that. So it was fine. Like, it was good. Obviously Adam they didn't have the best year that year, but it was for a good reason. And then we came back in 2005 and went like 33-0 and won the whole thing. So it was nice to have that influx of those 4 people back. That's such a crazy transition, though. It was hard. Coming back was hard.
I was going to say.
I didn't want to play.
Did you want to go to school?
Well, at school, I was excited to go back to school because it was like
normality.
Yeah. It was normal. I just wanted to swim. And for me to just want to swim, like, something's wrong with her. If you just want to swim, like, I just wanted to like separate myself from that experience because it was pretty heavy.
Of course.
Like, I lost like 10 pounds over there. We were gone for 2 months. Like, it was gnarly.
Yeah.
And you're young and you don't really know what's going on. You're just kind of like freaking out about every little thing, and it was a heavy experience, but definitely more prepared for the second time around, which was nice.
That experience, and like you mentioned, I have the utmost respect for anybody that goes to the Olympics in any sport. Not to judge, like, I think men's basketball is probably, probably men's basketball is the one that, we do have superstars in America, and they've been able to assemble a team a couple weeks in advance and win it, There's some sports, though, where they're so niche, if you will, where you're just like, this guy's trained for 10, 15, 20 years to have a chance to go to the to have a chance to be an Olympic trial, to go to the Olympics, to then compete, to then make it past the first round, to then do this, that, and the other. And I didn't really see it, like, playing sports growing up. We talk about like mental health. You talk about, those internal conversations with yourself. Maybe you vent to your mom or your dad, your brother, your dog, whatever it might be. Like, you have plenty of times where, shit, we're at this house. I'll eat dinner at the kitchen table at 9:00 in high school football and be like, this is how I'm feeling about things, guys. And guess what? Love my support system. Fresno State, I have weeks, you come home. I was blessed enough to play in my hometown where, like, I could come home on a Tuesday night and eat dinner with my mom and dad and be like, this is how things are going right now. But what I'm getting at is there's the margin for error and the margin to succeed, and to that, you want to inch by inch get a little bit of a nose ahead of your competition. In high school, you could do it. In college, that margin's tighter. Once you try to go for, like, on a Team USA level, that shit is razor thin. And again, at least in my experience, nobody grew up like bobsledding. I did skeleton. Nobody. You put your kid when they're 8 years old. You put them in Little League baseball and soccer camp and like little hoopster basketball. There's like 5 normal sports.
Yeah.
I'd throw water polo or swimming in there now for sure, especially as the sports continue to grow. But like, there's only 17 tracks or 14 tracks in the world to do this thing, and I get there as some young gun, like trying to capture the world. I'm fast. I'm gonna be good at this type dude. And like you look at it, you start meeting people. You're like, this dude's been on Team USA for 9 years, never been to Olympics, or this guy's been training and he's gotten to the trials, but never done this. Mm-hmm. Or some of them, they've been to 5 Olympics, never medaled.
Right.
And to see, again, I came in at a good time where there was 2 years till the games. I just finished playing college football. I knew I wanted to farm onions the rest of my life. Don't let me forget your onions later. It was a great place, great opportunity, right time, everything lined up. And I'm super proud of what I've done in my athletic career and content, but to experience that training every day at the Park City Olympic facility and seeing these guys, and you're not just training against Team USA in skeleton and bobsled, you're racing every day against, them and all these other countries.
Right, because they all have to come to one of those 17 tracks in the world.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of countries don't have a home track. So like the guys from Ireland and Israel and Ghana, all those kind of smaller, not so winter heavy countries, they come train in America. And you make friends with these guys. And I was an individual sport. So it was the first time I ever really, really experienced that, especially, maybe like middle school track. I ran track, you go win the 800, flex on a guy, whatever. But I'm used to playing football, soccer, baseball that are team sports. You play college football. We talk about culture. Mm-hmm. You better be bought in or else you're out of there in a week, right? Especially with Jeff Tedford. He's not messing around with that shit.
I don't mess around with Jeff.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm scared of Jeff.
There you go. Scary guy.
I love
Scary
Jeff.
guy.
I love Jeff. He's a good man.
Great guy. But this individual sport, people have these egos, their personas, and at the end of the day, it's not necessarily bad. I learned really quickly they're just trying to keep that edge. Mm-hmm. They don't want to tell you their secret, because if you learn it and they're better than you, and you're better than them, I'm sorry, now you're on their heels a little bit, and nobody likes to be in front of somebody and have somebody on their heels ever. What I'm getting at is the mental side of people training to go to the Olympics is on a whole different level. Mm-hmm. Whole different level.
Like when you say it's hard.
Oh, no.
You know what I mean? No, like you just described
it's hard.
What hard means.
Hard.
You know what I mean? Like, and just all the different things you have to go through. And that's again why I'm so critical of like our cultural like first place or second place is first loser, because it's like what you just said. There's guys that have been 5 times that have never medaled.
Ever.
You know what I mean? And they're rock stars. They're amazing. They're super good at what they do. But it's insane. Like, and you've got some guy who's like elbow deep in a bag of Doritos talking about how crappy you are, and you're like, get out of here. You just have a little respect. Yeah. You
have no idea. And again, there are probably some sports out there that are easier, quote unquote easier, probably from like a, participant consumer percentage. Mm-hmm. More people run track than bobsled. Right. Yes. But still, man, if you've been to the games, I tip my hat, because it is not easy to go to the Olympics, and I respect the shit out of it. That is,
thank you, and I respect you for trying. I think that's the thing too. It was tough. And I remember following you out there back when I had Twitter, back when it was called Twitter. Yeah. But I remember seeing you out there, and I'm like, that's cool, good for him. Like that's neat that you gave it a shot, because again, there's so many people that it's like, I could have done that, or I should have done that, or I would have done that. And they talk to their pals about like, well, I thought about doing that once. And you're like, that's nice. Like, did you actually do it? No. Then why are we talking about it? No, you know what I mean? But exactly. Like you went for it. And went for it. No, but like, even though like some people could consider, like some jackass could say that's a failure, but it's not. Like, at least you tried, at least for sure, because you're not sitting over here, grumbling to your, no, to your empty beer about how, I could have been something, for sure what you are.
You got to. And like, I think when I saw the writing on the wall, like I said, I learned, we had this thing called speed school. I never did this before. I grew up playing other sports, right?
Like, sounds good. Speed school.
You got to see if you're fast. I mean, you got to see if you can handle the speed of the track. You're going downhill.
Is that
80.
the head first one or the feet first one?
I was head first.
You're crazy.
And well, shit.
Just hurl yourself down face first.
Fuck it, let's go.
Let's go.
But you get better over time. You create things, and you have these races. You're racing, and like you call your dad after. I call my dad after practice every day. You call him after a race, and you're like, "How'd you do?" And like, I'm not playing Boise State this week. I beat a guy from Canada, and I beat a guy from so and so, and at the Olympic facility, it's like. It says Dalena, USA, and there's rankings. It's a cool. It was a really unique thing, and I built my way up the ladder. And one of the reasons I really started to bring the juice is I ended up like tearing my calf and found out I had 3 blood clots in my leg.
Ooh, that's scary.
Terrible. I was 23. Terrible. And trials were like, it was trial week, and I was just like, all right, this ain't gonna happen. Especially with like the G forces you hit, it was not going to happen. So some of my people in my corner of coach wise were like, hey, don't worry about it. Like, get better, blah, blah, blah. There's, you're probably not going to go to these games anyways. You could train for the next ones, which is another, at this point, I'm 2 years deep. That's 4 years away. And at that point, I did a lot of reflection. I got my leg in a cocoon. I can't do anything. I can't go on an airplane or anything like that. And I'm just like, fuck, man. Like, that's a lot. You don't realize it's your last real competitive, high level competition until it just is. But I was content. I knew I wanted to farm onions growing up. My brothers were, my middle brother, Mac, he just started playing football at Fresno State. So I still kind of can live through him a little bit on that essence of things. And COVID hit at this point too, which really just shook everything up also. It changed the way you could race. But seeing people where I was like, hey, I did a good 2 years. I accomplished a lot. I got to rock Team USA for a little bit. Like, fuck yeah. But seeing people who it's like, dude, they've tried to go to the last 3 Olympics and they haven't gone. And looking at their stature of life too. This is at least, and I kind of wanted to ask you this. Like, this was at least like the sliding culture. You don't get paid. You're you have to be self-funded. You travel all over the world to compete, and you're doing a sport this sport was really weird. You don't really want to be pigeonholed into that. And not many people had a spouse that would be okay with, you being gone 8 months of the year, sliding for 3 weeks at a time at random places. Like, it's also not cheap to fly to Switzerland from America with a 300 pounds worth of luggage. And other countries, like when you slide on their track, they'd really up the slide rate. Like, in the United States, we slide for free because you're American, or it'd be like $100 or something like that. Other countries they wanted you to not to get used to their track, right? It's like IndyCar. Every track in the world is different. What I'm getting at is, what was your experience on the Team USA, Olympic run? Were you guys getting paid? Did you have incentives based off of how much money, or incentives based off where you placed and stuff like that? Like, and I know it was a different time too.
Different time. I think we got like $1,200 a month
to be on the Team USA water polo team. $1,200 a month.
$1,200 a month when we were in full-time training only. And at that point in my life, I had like a studio apartment in Long Beach and a car payment. And I was like, hell yeah, this is sweet.
You were young enough to where it's like...
Young enough to where it was like, all right, no big deal. And I was kind of used to just living off a scholarship check.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Quick bang, bang.
Yeah, so it was super... And again, housing wasn't what it is now. But so I think it was $1,200. I think the most we ever got was like... Maybe we got to 2,000 in 2008. Yeah. And that's only when you're in full... Yeah, that's only when you're in full-time training. And then you would get Operation Gold money. So there were incentives to winning tournaments. Like if you won, like World League Super Final had like a pot of cash that they'd award to the winner.
Right.
And so they'd give our federation however many thousands of dollars, and then we'd split it between everybody. And it was a pretty even split. I think now they've gotten to the point to where there's like tiers of athletes, and that's how they get paid. So like if you've been to more than one Olympics or whatever, you get X, you're like an A tier. If you've been to one Olympics, I don't know. Like if you've been on the national team, you played in World Championships, you're a B tier. If this is your first
kind of fair
time, is your C tier. And I don't know how drastically different it is, but again, trying to incentivize the older women to stay. And don't quote me on it. I think that's what they've gone to. And then, but Operation Gold Money, I think, and this has been pretty consistent. I think it's $25,000 for a gold medal, 15 for a silver medal, and 10 for a bronze medal.
For water polo?
I think that's for everybody.
Really?
Yeah.
And then everything else is based off of, like, you get paid off endorsements, basically, everything else.
If you have endorsements. Yeah. If you have that. And then you're taxed on that $25,000 or $15,000.
Is it just federal tax usually?
Yeah. Yeah. But it was just one of those things.
Not California.
Yeah, I don't think so, but I don't remember. I was just like, whatever, just tell me what I have left.
Yeah.
But it was, that was kind of it. So you definitely didn't do it for the money. Like,
no,
it was nice,
hell
but
no.
it was nice to get a little bit of help to offset some stuff. And I enjoyed it. We trained at the Los Alamitos Joint Forces Training Base. So it was this janky pool that's still really janky. We built like a little weight room in there, and it just became our home, but it's totally like haphazard. Like you walk in there, you're probably like, what the hell is this? This is not a crap. Yeah. Like the lane lines on the bottom are all bleached off. Like there's no lane lines on the bottom of the pool, which I'm stoked with because it's a water polo pool. But you'd have to like check in with the sentry as you come in. Like if we went for runs on the base together, we'd have to like run the military style, like with the little vests on and everything.
Fuck
and yeah, it was fun, and I enjoyed it. You make friends with the guy at the gate and like joke with him and razz him. He's like, "What's up, Chavez?" And he's like, "Hey, girl, how's it going?" And you show him your ID, and he sees you every day. But it was fun. It was enjoyable. It was hard. It was challenging. You know, you're staring at the sun for 3 hours in the afternoon, and you can't feel your legs and you can't feel your shoulders, and you're getting yelled at, and you have one sub, and you start over because that was crap, you know, and you're just like, you know, it's like, all right, here we go. So yeah, we got really tough. And I think there was one trip we flew to Australia, which is a long flight. I think we flew and then had another flight after that in Australia. Got there, dropped our stuff off. Yeah, we flew up to like Brisbane, dropped our stuff off at the hotel, grabbed a bite to eat, went straight to the gym, lifted, went straight to the pool, scrimmaged the Australians for 4 quarters, and then did a swim set. To where the Aussies walked past us and like, what the hell are you guys doing? We're like,
we're going to beat your ass later.
We're conditioning. And it's like, you guys just got here. I'm like, yep. We saw the hotel to put our stuff down and put on our sports bra, you know, get our shoes on, you know, change out of our American flying clothes. Yeah. Caca. Yeah. It was nuts where you're just like, we were just so conditioned. Like we were broken. We were broken in. We were like the wild Mustangs that are now rideable horses. That's for sure.
Did you, in your experience of going internationally, and you probably got to know some of these other foreign teams over the years, I'm sure. Was there any Olympic team or national team, if I will, that like you could tell they took their national teams more seriously than others? Because I've heard Team USA, depending on the sport, you know, they just don't invest in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the USOC will invest in teams they think will win.
Right.
Period. And so after we started medaling, they started investing in women's water polo.
Right.
For sure. But the Spaniards take it pretty seriously. The Hungarians are always good. They're always good. But I think they sometimes have this like hubristic belief of like, you know, if the Americans are beating us, we're not good enough. And you're like, dude, no, like we're pretty good. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and so like they do some strange things. And I think it's also like, if you've got a decent coach who's maybe got like 5th place at world championships, like that's unacceptable. Like you're out. We got to put a new person in. So, but water polo is like, if Hungary wins a world championship, it's like the Lakers won the NBA championship. There's like a ticker tape parade going down the streets of Budapest. You know what I mean? Right. Like it's just a big deal in those countries, like Croatia, Hungary, Serbia on the men's side. Right. It's like the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. Like, ticker tape, crazy, you know. So it's some countries treat water polo a lot like that's their NBA. You've got some guys on these men's teams that are like 6'8", 280 like monster men, like would be linemen. Like they had to change the rules. I think the Serbian men had this beast of a man, again, like 6'8", 2 something in the cage. And then back in 2004, we could play with like 2 hands out, kind of staggered. And so they draw an exclusion and they just put 2 guys of equal size back in the cage. So you've got all this just man taking up the goal and you couldn't get the ball in. Wow. So they changed the rules where you only use one hand. Right. Wow. Because these guys are huge. They're football guys. They're basketball guys. Like
but it's just their culture.
And that's what they play there. You know?
Shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember I've heard stories of water polo itself being a very violent game. Mm-hmm. What's the most violent thing you've seen in the sport? Give me your most drastic.
Oh God. To me personally or just in general?
You know, if you asked me the same question, I have no idea what I would say.
Right. You'd say a guy got hit hard or something?
I would say a guy they try to
stomp your cleat into your leg or something.
They try to punch you in the private parts when you're, in the bottom of a dog pile. That's not very nice. No, it's not. Maybe someone said some mean words to you.
Also not very nice. No.
But I've heard people, dig claws. I've heard they grab parts and things like that.
Lots of parts grabbing, yes. So we have nail checks.
Okay.
So they will check your nails to make sure that they're not too long. Mm-hmm. So you can't kind of stab each other or scratch each other up with your nails. So they actually do perform nail checks. That's part of like the safety part that the officials do before the game. I've been bitten multiple times. Obviously punched, elbowed, kicked in the face. Sometimes on purpose, sometimes not. Right. Lots of closed fist stuff, like to your ribs, to your belly, kicked off the belly, kicked off the chest. Some people just kind of go all out. Like sometimes when you'll have common training, you're just kind of sick of somebody. And back in the old days, it would be like, all right, let's 2 minutes for a little bit of a brawl. Compose yourself, come back and we play again.
Right.
So there were some times where people would just jump in and just be like, all right, I'm just going to get after it. And like there's a full-on fist fight.
Yeah. Is fist fights while treading water is one of the tactics you try to drown them?
If it's within the game, you want to be as sly as you can to where the referee can't see what you're doing. So probably not. But if it's one of those like
you're just
training brawls, yeah,
you just try to drown them.
You push them underwater and
hope.
Yeah, I don't. People don't really mess around with drowning. I think people understand that that's a big thing. I just want to get at you.
Yeah.
I've been held underwater before to where you're like, if I don't get oxygen in the next 5 seconds, there's going to be a problem. You know, but like
fight or flight.
Yeah, like where you're just thinking like this could be it. Like this is not good.
Wow.
But that's why also like retaliation. Like if you're being held under, that's when you're gonna get
that bad punch you don't want to get.
You're gonna get something somewhere you won't want it.
Fight or flight.
Yeah, and obviously like high school, there's no place for that. Even college, like I don't talk to my girls about any of this stuff because I don't think it's right. But if you're a grown woman and you're playing national team stuff and you're 25, 26, 27 years old, you know better.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And if you're going to start stuff, I'm going to stop it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I like to call it the hot stove technique. Like, just let me play. Leave me alone. I'm trying to follow the rules. I'm being a good sport. But if you mess with me, I'm going to stop it. Don't touch the hot stove while it's cooking. You're going to burn your hand, man. Don't do it. Leave it alone.
I clip that. What about from a training perspective? I know that every sport goes through different, hell, if you will. Do you have a certain is training in the ocean difficult? Is training weighted difficult? Like what's the holy shit? This is our tough spot.
Tough stuff
in training for water polo.
Any open water swimming is hard because the water's moving you around. It's hard to find a rhythm. Obviously, directionally, you don't really know where you're going. So you can lose track of where you are. Obviously, if you're in a lake, the currents aren't as bad, but like in an ocean or a river, there's probably currents. And
do you guys do that?
We did. We swam in oceans in Greece and Australia. We swam in a lake in Hungary.
Fresno State's got Millerton right here.
I know, we could. I just also I hated open water. I grew up in Whittier, so we weren't. It's Orange County, but it's not. It's like LA. I like to say I'm from East LA.
Yeah.
So it's we were like a once a year peanut butter and jelly kind of
Right.
family going to the beach. You know what I mean? It was like bonfires and kicking sand. Like open water swimming creeps me out, man. Like, and so I want to be respectful of everybody. Like I hated it, so I'm not making anybody else do something I hate to do.
Fair. Very fair.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it. And like we have a perfectly good pool. You can see the bottom of it. You know where everybody is. And then safety. Like I just freak out. Like I'm responsible for these kids' safety. I don't want anybody getting hurt, so, or getting lost or drowning and I can't see them. So like I'm always a little, again, I could be their mother. Sometimes I am. I worry about their safety with that kind of stuff. But
respect that.
For us, weighted stuff. We have weight belts, we have vests, and we'll get after it with some weights. And they can do some mobile stuff with like a lighter belt, like a 5-pound belt. We'll do a little bit of swimming with a lighter belt. I don't really like them swimming with a belt on, but a lot of vertical work, knocking down, shot blocking, elevating, position work, things like that. A little bit more stagnant, less, horizontal up and down the pool. We'll dig in on belts.
August 17th, 2024 at Campus Point. It's the first annual Bring the Juice dodgeball tournament.
Oh, damn.
Okay.
I can sling it. I can't jump, but I can sling it.
You don't need to jump in dodgeball. It's not jump rope.
You got to dive,
dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
There it is.
5 Ds of dodgeball.
Yes.
Shout out Patches O'Houlihan on that one.
Mm-hmm. If you can dodge a wrench,
you can dodge a ball. Point being, this is going to be an insane event. 32 teams. Right there in the middle of Campus Point. We got all the goods guys supporting it. You seen the movie?
Dodgeball?
Of course.
Yes.
Good. The same guy who made the arena for the movie Dodgeball, he's making the Bring the Juice Dodgeball Tournament arena. This thing's gonna be legit, okay? With that being said, I have played dodgeball. High school, this was a thing. This is a big thing at our high school. Like we have a gym called Ryan's Gym that is known. It's like it used to be a bomb bunker of some sort. 4 to 5 foot worth of concrete as these walls. Cold as shit. Gym floor. PE. You go there. I took PE. I'm a 4-year vet of PE in high school, of course. Dodgeball was the game. We had old crappy volleyballs we'd use. And he split it down the middle, and let's go, boys. Talk about adrenaline. Now, being an athlete that I am, or was at one point, wide receiver, I had the hands, but I also had a cannon at one point. Some water polo guys, though, could sling it. Mm-hmm. We had our quarterback who could sling. We had some baseball guys that could sling. Your athletic guys on land that I grew up with, that I was like, this guy has a cannon. Then there were some guys, one of them is actually my brother-in-law now, who was a stud water polo player who could effing sling it. F&A cotton. F&A. Sling it. Like break people's faces. And I'm thinking about the water polo players from my era of high school dodgeball, and I'm having this tournament. I don't want you guys to do anything, but do you think if you assembled a team with the cannons you have, you could win this tournament?
Probably.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
They're competitive.
Sure.
They throw.
Can they dodge, duck, dip, and dive?
Most of them can. It's the running part.
I don't think it's that hard.
That's what I'm saying. No, but it's the running. It's like if you were to say let's go play basketball and like run and jump and land.
Yeah.
That part's scary to me.
Yeah, but that's
what I mean. Like I think they could do that, but I think we have some weird like land ineptitude.
You like if you were a fish who evolved out of water, like you could handle that.
Right. You see them play water polo and you're like, damn, these people are athletic. And you see them on land and you're like, no.
But that's vice versa.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm terrible in a pool.
Everybody's got their thing and that's okay. Right. But yes, they can at least catch. They can at least do the little, sideways kind of dodge. You can
do some slides.
How often really do you have to do like the full jump spread dodge?
I don't think so.
That usually hits you. I've found.
Most guys.
People kind of go for like the waist, and so you jump and it still hits you.
When planning this tournament, I probably have watched 90% of the dodgeball content available on YouTube. And I've watched the movie 4 times in the last week. Probably month of May, I watched it 4 times. And I'm not watching it to see White Goodman say what White Goodman says, although it is classic every single time. And I could quote the shit out of that movie right now. But I will say, most games are about 4 minutes long. Catching, most people fail at. Mm-hmm. They like to dodge. If you have the cannon, it gets you a long way. And these guys have plays. I watched the Team USA versus Canada dodgeball, unofficial dodgeball game. They're not that good. Like, I feel like I could put together a squad of buddies together and we'd beat these guys. I think, I think so. I think so. Someone cap.
Let's flash back about 10 minutes, that conversation we were having. And then now.
Until it's an Olympic sport.
Are you sure?
Until it's an Olympic sport.
Oh, remember the game Average, or the show Average Joe's?
That was the movie. That was the team of the.
Yeah, but do you remember the show Average Joe's? All right, so there used to be the show on television where like.
It was a dodgeball show?
It wasn't dodgeball. It was all right, for example, I could beat these guys at dodgeball, right? All right. So
I know what you're talking about. This is you put a pro out.
Yeah, then you put all the pros out there.
Yes, I do remember the show now.
And then who was the basketball player who was on the Celtics? White guy, red hair, and everybody always talks smack on him like, "Oh, he sucks," right? And he like called all these guys out. He was like, "Come on, I'll meet you at the park and we'll play." And he devastated all of them within like a minute. And it's like, oh,
I don't know. You watch the tape on this and you'll be like, okay, I know what you mean.
No, I get it. I'm just saying, like sometimes.
Well, but I wouldn't
sometimes film can be slower, as you know, as an athlete. Film can be slower than live play.
I also think though, like I would not say the same thing about cornhole. I went to a cornhole tournament recently. These guys are insane. It's disgusting how much they practice it, first of all.
Yeah.
Listen, buddy, go to a tailgate. Have a brewski in your hand.
Agreed.
Take a fucking load off,
Go
buddy.
to that place in Arizona.
What kind of a weirdo? I don't want to talk shit because I might throw a Bring the Juice cornhole tournament really soon. But who goes home from work and says, hey, honey, I'll see you in an hour. I'm going to go get 500 throws in right now.
I'm going to just go toss some bags,
recreationally.
I'm going to toss some bags, babe. Let's go.
Throw a little country music on the tunes, crack a Coors Light on a Saturday with the boys. Yeah, you could have some consistent games. There's nothing wrong with being a tailgate legend.
True.
But
yeah.
You watch on ESPN, these guys got slide. They got like reverse. It's like a forklift with their hand.
You got English on that bag?
Fuck. I played in a tournament. I got my ass kicked. Destroyed. And these guys, and that's the other thing too. You have no idea who's good or not.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
it's like
golf.
John Daly in cornhole. Yeah, absolutely.
You have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like
one-handed with a beer in his hand, barefoot.
You're just like, who Conor McGregor's fight. Who the fuck is this guy, right? Anyways, dodgeball though, I'll watch the video, coach, and you'll be like, yeah, my team could beat this team.
Okay, send it over.
But August 17th, Campus Point, the Bring the Juice dodgeball match. Coach, my last question I got for you, and I like to brush on this in the episode. When chasing greatness, one of the hardest things to do is stay consistent. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a good idea. Everybody wants to be great for a day. Everybody wakes up with their piss hot every once in a while, and it's going to conquer the world. But on the days that get tough, and on the days when you just don't feel like being that guy, crushing whatever's ahead of you, what's the voice in your head? What's the kick in the ass that says, "Nah, let's go get this work. Let's go push ourselves to our full potential."
Like how do I keep my team motivated?
No, you.
How do I keep myself motivated?
Because without you, it starts at the top.
Right. Yeah, my half joking answer would be head injuries and chlorine fumes has made my short-term memory lacking, so I just can very good at being in the moment.
Right. You just know.
But I think in all reality though, I think it's like respecting where your feet are in the moment. Like if you embrace some stoicism in your life of appreciating and respecting where you are right now and not looking back or looking forward too much, then you can be fully immersed in what you're doing. And I think that's what I'm working on, where and there's things I'd like to be better at, and as you'll find out as soon to be parent, I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old and two girls, and they're both like, they have a water polo tournament this weekend, and it's like my first like weekend off, but I'm going to be going up to Sacramento on Friday night, staying in another hotel watching water polo, but it's for my kids, And
right.
So I think there's things that I want to do and need to do as a human being, and as a parent and as a coach, for myself, for others, for my family. And so I think there's just literally so much going on that I'm like forced to be in that moment. And this moment is what's enjoyable. And there's no like going back and changing the thing you screwed up before. You can only really move forward, you know? So for example, like we had a tremendous first half of our conference championship match and totally boofed the second half. Like they just ran out of gas. They were all hyped up for like a good hour and a half before the game started. And I think they just ran out of gas, and LMU had a great second half, and we ended up going to overtime. And so I could sit there, and I remember like literally having a conversation with myself and checking my own attitude and thinking like, hey, I could sit here and just give them a hard time for, you know, what just happened, but like that's not going to help anything. That's not going to fix anything. That's not going to solve our problem. Like we have to move forward and just be where we are. We're in this situation. Now let's make the most of it. We can still win, you know, so it's not over until it's over. So stop complaining about it or thinking about the woulda, coulda, shoulda and all this other stuff. Just move forward. Next possession. So I think next possession attitude and respecting, like people graduate, the team changes, we bring new kids in. I think that's always a really good refresher. People evolve and change, and their roles change, and my staff changes. So every year is different in its own right. And I think respecting the student athletes and their journey of like, they only get 4 years. This could be my 10th year, my 20th year, my whateverth year. Right. Doesn't matter. It's not about me. I've got to look out for them. They only get 4. And so I want to make sure that they maximize every year, and that they learn things again that they can carry with them, you know, in whatever career they choose, you know, like into being parents, into being an employee, into being a manager, into, you know, taking over the world, whatever they choose to do, they can take the skills that they learned here and apply the water polo skills they learned to their life. So I just think it's like a respect thing for the student athletes that choose to come here and be with me for 4 years.
I love it. If I had a water polo playing daughter right now, I would want them to be coached by you. That is awesome. That is exactly what Fresno State needs in a coach right now, and I'm glad we have you, and I hope we have you for generations to come, and you continue to win rings. Like I said, you got that winning culture, and you got that dog in you, which is, I love that shit. It fires me up. I really enjoyed this episode. For our viewers out there, make sure you go to a water polo game this year. Mm-hmm. Check out the Bring the Juice official Fresno State water polo merchandise coming out very soon. Get your piss hot, stay fired up. Be sure to subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe. Follow all Fresno State related water polo stuff on the gram so you can stay updated. And we'll see you next week.